morning, viewers and listeners. Murielle Fellous here with another episode of Date Like a French Woman. And today I have an interview that is going to help you feel your best when you go back to the dating life, because we're going to talk about financials. And it's an important piece to be aware of and to have in order if you want to start moving forward in your life again. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Murielle Fellous. I am a relationship coach and the founder of Date Like a French Woman, where I help women to find the love that they are really looking for instead of all kinds of dysfunctional and painful relationships that they may have had experiences with in the past. Today, my interview is with Andrew, and I totally apologize. I don't have his last name on my bio. Big mistake. I'm gonna have to ask you, Andrew, for your last name. Andrew was born in England and grew up in Canada, and he has lived in Las Vegas for 18 years. He's a financial advisor with the Retirement Solutions Group and a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. Recently, Andrew launched the Second Saturday Las Vegas Divorce Workshop, a workshop that meets on the second Saturday of every month at the Sahara West Public Library, and helps to educate women who are considering divorce or are already in the divorce process. So that's a huge piece. Welcome, Andrew. Good morning. And I'm going to have to ask you for your last name. I totally apologize. That's really big, bad.
Bonjour, Murielle. Comment allez-vous?
Très bien, et vous?
I learned a little bit of French in my school days in Canada. My last name is Hatherley, so it's Andrew Hatherley. And even native English speakers have trouble with my name, so don't worry.
Okay. So I'm curious, you're helping women with their financials and the divorce. What led you? What's your story? What gave you the idea to start with that business? Was there a trigger?
Yes, it's quite a long story, so I'll try and keep it relatively brief. But my financial advisory practice, the Retirement Solutions Group, is largely oriented towards women. Being the Retirement Solutions Group, I deal with a lot of people over the age of 60. And through natural demographics, I tend to have more female clients than male. And the focus of the investment advisory firm is really women in transition. And that can be the key transition, retirement, but also widowhood and also divorce. Now, with regards to the Second Saturday workshop and divorce, there was a personal trigger there, which catapulted me into the divorce world. And of course, as you might guess, that was my own divorce.
Yes.
It was not a pleasant process. We had split up in 2008, and we didn't get divorced until 2015. So that's mistake number one. And I kind of hold myself out as a poster child of how not to get divorced, because that was a big mistake. But I've always been very oriented towards education with my clients, and having gone through the divorce process, and very painful process, both emotionally and financially, I determined that I could provide an excellent service, not only to my clients, but to people who might potentially be clients in the future, and to people who are getting divorced, to help educate them on the process so that they can avoid some of the mistakes that I made in going through divorce, and let them know a little bit about the process, and also, and we cover this at the Second Saturday workshop, coming out of the process of divorce, because when you're in it, you feel like you're in a whirlpool.
Yes.
And the emotions run very, very high, and fear, I think, is the predominant emotion. But what I tell all the participants at the workshop is that there is life after divorce. And ultimately, you are emerging from a situation that wasn't right for you to begin with. and there can be a tremendous future for you, once this painful process is through. And I hope to help people reduce the pain of the process through the second Saturday workshop, which is an educational workshop from a legal perspective. We have an attorney speaking. Right now, we have Philip Spradlin from Wright Lawyers speaking on the legal aspects of divorce. I speak on the financial aspects of divorce. I'm a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. And we have Lynn Smith, who's a licensed marital and family therapist, and she speaks on the emotional aspects of divorce. So it's only a $40 registration fee. For $40, you're getting a lot of advice, about 2.5 hours of advice from 3 professionals specializing in the area. So it's a long answer to the question of how I came to be part of the workshop, but it was really a natural outgrowth from my clientele who are women, but specifically my particular experience. And I realized that I could add a lot of value by bringing this workshop, which was around the country, but wasn't in Las Vegas, to Las Vegas.
And it's true that when we go through something ourselves, we can really know what people feel and all the fear that is rising. And that really makes you the best person to help everybody that is going through the same experience. And as far as finances, for you, in fact, every time a person is going through an ending of something, whether it is retirement or anything, to be prepared financially will help you approach it better, to have more peace of mind. And as I always emphasize, healing at every level, on an emotional level, and you have the emotional part in your workshop, it's hugely important to have healed all the aspects of it and not feel like you're somehow a victim of what happened and dragging that energy with you. Now, if a woman knows that it is time for her or her marriage is going to end, can they come and see you to help themselves be prepared? Because I know that there are a lot of situations where women are not even involved in the financial aspects of their marriage and they discover horrible stuff once they divorce and it's too late. Can you help them get prepared for that?
That is key advice, is preparation is key. And, I even counsel my, happily married couples or people who are just newly married, because that's another transition. Always take an interest in the household finances, because ultimately divorce, it can be the largest financial transaction of your life. And many times the divorce is sprung upon one of the partners. Somebody comes home one day and says, I want a divorce. And it comes out of left field. It's like a lightning strike. And in many cases, the spouse that's receiving that information hasn't been involved in the family finances. More often than not, it's the female, not always, but more often than not, the husband will take care of doing the taxes, paying the mortgage, paying off the credit cards. Not always the case, but in many cases, I've come across ladies who haven't known whether they're on the title to the house even, or whether they're on the mortgage, whether they're on the mortgage, if the credit cards are in one name or if they're in joint names, or bank accounts. So, or for instance, tax returns. In many cases, a husband, come April 15th, will fill out the tax return and kind of hand it to his wife and say, here, honey, just sign here, and then whisk it away. And she doesn't know all the details on that return. She has the right to know the details. She's signing and it's going to the IRS. So I would say always be aware and always take an interest in your financials, even if you're happily married, because unfortunately 50% of marriages do end in divorce. That's first marriages, and the numbers just go up on second and third marriages. So I would say be proactive, even while happily married. If you sense there are problems in the marriage, it's time to really, take an interest. And divorce, I should say, it's a cash-hungry event. So if this is something that's going to happen in your life, or you think it's going to happen in your life, 6 months, a year, or maybe 2 or 3 years down the road. Maybe you're putting up with your spouse because of the children, and you think that maybe this marriage will end a couple of years down the road. Well, have some accounts in your own name. Have some credit in your own name, because you don't want to be in a situation when you're going through divorce of having joint accounts emptied out. And now courts can ultimately help you with that situation. But you want to try and avoid court if possible, because divorce can be extremely expensive when you get high-priced attorneys involved.
Yes.
So,
And even without speaking about divorce, as a person in a relationship, it is an empowering step, to know what's going on, because it concerns you. It's like your physical health, your financial health. And if you want to be really the highest version of yourself, you need to know what's going on and not give your power away to somebody else. Even if you trust your husband or your wife and you know that everything is going well, it is really an important step to show, I believe in life, sending us what we need. I believe that the universe is listening to what we do and what we say, and taking steps to be the highest version of yourself includes knowing where you are financially. Now,
yes.
If someone has already divorced, and because I know that when I personally divorced, my biggest fear was to end up in the street with my kids, because my ex-husband lost his business and it was a mess. It was a mess. The house was under my name only. So I ended up losing the house. It was a fiasco. If I had been better prepared, I would have saved myself so much worry. But there I was. It was too late.
Yeah.
So what can someone do if they are already divorced and they are panicking because they think about their retirement, they want to put their finances in order? Can we catch up after the disaster already happened and really bring some peace of mind and some order?
I am a great believer that it's never too late, and that you can achieve marvelous things in your life, even in your second half of your life, or even the fourth quarter of your life, whatever the case may be. Obviously, it becomes more difficult. This is why I want to encourage people not to make mistakes in divorce, because if you make big mistakes in divorce, it becomes more difficult to get back on track once you're single again. Now, that's not to say you can't get on track when you're single again. Certainly, many women that I know have launched new careers, have kind of pushed outside their comfort zone, are discovering that they can do things that they weren't aware of.
Yes.
And so they're able to, increase their earning power, which is key to saving for retirement. But in many cases, it requires, a mental change as well.
Mindset, yes.
And there are plenty of women who make good money, but they spend a lot of their money, and they're not putting aside, $6,500 a year in the Roth IRA, or they're not maxing out their 401k. The worst mistake I can see, and I've seen some sad cases where employers are offering a very generous match on their 401k, and the person, and unfortunately in the cases I've seen, more often than not it's a female, is that they're not even contributing to the 401k. They're turning down free money.
Yes.
So I think, first of all, make sure that if you're new back in the workforce, or you're in the workforce, you've always been in the workforce, recommit yourself to participating in your company's 401k plan, particularly if they have a match, because that's free money, and no financial advisor, even myself, can beat free money when it comes to investment returns. And the second thing is, you can speak to an advisor such as myself, and we can look at other options, such as IRAs, Roth IRAs, which I think are a tremendous idea, to start putting money away. In many cases, it makes sense to speak to a life coach, and maybe a female life coach who can relate to financial matters, and a female life coach can maybe help with the mindset that sees a lot of money being spent as opposed to being saved for retirement. Men tend to, I don't want to generalize too much, but in divorce, women are generally tend to be very focused on the house, usually because the children have grown up in the house, and usually because they've been very involved in decorating the house, and it's because something personal to them. Men, on the other hand, tend to be focused on their 401k plans and their pensions and their retirement accounts. It's like the little character in Lord of the Rings, Gollum, where he talks about my precious, the ring. Men are like that about their retirement accounts in many cases. And I think, and some women are increasingly taking more interest in that, and I think definitely they should going forward.
But based on my experience and what I see with my clients, the problem is that they don't think, because they don't earn enough, that they don't think that what they can save will actually have an impact because it's too small. And I think that's the main mistake, right?
Well, particularly if they're younger, because what's the seven wonders of the world? I think the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. And the effect that $1,000 that earns 10% this year, next year will be $1,100 earning interest, and on and on. And the effect of that compounding over time is marvelous. Now, you have to have time. So if you're in your 30s or even 40s and you're putting a regular amount of money away, then that money, by the time you're 65 or whenever your retirement date is, that can grow into a pretty penny through the simple benefit of compound interest. Anything is better than nothing. Any money put aside in a retirement account is better than going and spending it on a disposable item or an item that's going to depreciate in value. So I would say it's never too late. Now, but I would be remiss if I didn't say it's difficult. If you're in your late 50s or early 60s, you still should save. You may end up working a little longer, but hopefully during your married life, you put some money together, and of course that's where the divorce settlement is key. You know, if you're older, you really want to make sure that you pay extra special attention and don't give away too much for emotional reasons, because quite often guilt for some reason may come into the equation. Or I've heard people say, I just wanted the process over with. I just wanted the divorce over with. I gave him everything.
Yes.
Well, 10, 20 years down the road, that's a very, very costly mistake. So it's very difficult in the divorce process not to be emotional, but at the same time, you really have to consider down the road. And what you were saying, it's the fear of being a bag lady, and I hear that.
Yes.
A lot of people, particularly women, that have that deep fear, and this is something ideally that's addressed early in life. Now, not everybody starts saving for their retirement plans in their 20s. Even I spent not until my 30s, mid 30s, that I start saving for retirement, and then I got into the business. We all make that mistake. There are a few chosen, very smart 20-somethings who put money aside and can really enjoy that compound interest. But it still works in your 30s or 40s.
Yeah, actually, I have a 20-year-old, and I had that discussion with her not so long ago, like 2 months ago. She said, I want to put $10 a month away toward my retirement. I said, go ahead. Anything you're going to put away is going to be increasing because of the compound interest. And even $10 a month, because she's still a student, just the habit of doing it is already installing something that's healthy.
The habit is very, very important. The habit is very important. And one thing I forgot to mention is, when I speak to the participants at the second Saturday divorce workshop and talk about your future life will be a better life because you're emerging from a situation, then we're talking about things like personal growth. Yes. And one aspect of personal growth is having a better relationship with money and your finances.
Absolutely.
So there's different ways we can develop ourselves, and maybe we'll talk about that later. But I think particularly relationship with money, with your body, your health,
yes.
Getting outside your comfort zone, all these things are...
Because money is an energy like anything else. And when you don't respect it, when you don't take it seriously, you can't really open the door to abundance in a real way. Life will not send you something that you don't value or you don't appreciate. And it's very often people are afraid or even of even looking at it because they know they are not where they want to be. And so they are like an ostrich. They put their head in the sand and they said, I'll see that later. But that's dangerous. That's playing with fire to do that, because then you wake up when it may be too late. Now, in your Saturday workshops, do you see or do you hear comments from women that come very anxious and very nervous about that big subject of money? Do you see that they get some relief once they get all the information from you, from the legal side and the emotional side? Do they feel that there is a hope opening where there was none before?
Yes, this is what is so gratifying to me about the Second Saturday Divorce Workshop. And we started it 5 months ago in March. And there wasn't one in Las Vegas. The Second Saturday Divorce Workshop was founded in 1988 by the Women's Institute of Financial Education. And there are now, I think, 125 around the country. Oh. And I looked it up when I heard about it, and I was surprised that there wasn't one in Las Vegas.
The capital of divorce, right?
Right, exactly. I thought, well, wow, I need to bring this. So I spoke to the people who run Second Saturday in San Diego, and
oops, it froze. Oh no!
And unfortunately, was able to get. Okay, I can see you.
Oh, you froze for a second. So if you can repeat what you were just saying, you spoke to the people that were organizing.
The people who lead Second Saturday in San Diego, and quickly got the rights to do the workshop here in Las Vegas. And to answer your question, the women have been so. It's been just great for me to hear them after the workshop, their gratitude at the information that's been conveyed to them by each of the 3 presenters, and how they've really felt that it's been a big assistance to them. And we have them fill out an evaluation form at every workshop, and across the board at every workshop, it's been top marks for the content that they've been receiving. So I know we're doing good work at the workshop, because even I think it was in April, we had some women sitting in the front row, and I was delivering, I think, the closing presentation, and I could hear them say to each other, "This is terrific, this is great," the information that they were receiving. So that, I think, has been the most satisfying aspect of the workshop for me, is knowing that people are coming in and they're feeling. I'm not saying the workshop's going to be a magic cure, but it's going to help people feel that they're on the right path.
Yeah, there is hope. And once they attended the workshop, they got some clarifying information. What's the next step if they really want to start doing something? To come and see you?
Right. In many cases, they will come and see me. I'll give a free half-hour consultation after the workshop. And I believe the therapist in the group, Lynn, does also. I have to check with her on that. But yes, I give a free half-hour consultation where we can talk in more detail, because obviously at the workshop, some people don't want to get into. Some people get very personal into details, and others prefer not to, prefer to speak to me personally. So they'll come into my office, we'll chat, we'll find out, where they are in the process, and if they have an attorney, or if their husband is relatively amicable, I can work with them. I can work with both the husband and the wife as a financial neutral, and help them put together a settlement and get the divorce done very quickly and keep the legal fees down. Well, the settlement will be drawn up by a qualified professional. But every case is a little bit different, and some there's more, the husband or other spouse is more amicable and lends themselves more towards the mediated process rather than the legal court-driven process. So we try and find, I prefer to deal with people who are relatively amicable,
Yes.
And reasonable, sensible, want to avoid a lot of rancor and anger, and just work out a fair settlement for each of them, and then keep the costs down and keep the money to themselves, essentially, rather than the court process is, especially if a case goes to trial, is very, very, very expensive.
So you can actually help them to get to a settlement. I didn't know that. I thought you would help somebody to organize their finances so that they can get the most benefit of the money that they have, but you can actually help them.
No, as a certified divorce financial analyst, I'm really the only person in the divorce world that specializes in working on helping relatively amicable divorcing couples reach a financial settlement and help them get the divorce done with as little rancor and potentially no attorneys, and then just the paperwork can be drawn up by an attorney or paralegal and make sure that that's all together. But yes, I work with people to try and help them put together a financial settlement.
And because what I see also are women who, let's say, they're single moms and they're not really educated on what kind of investment they can put aside for their kids' college or to help their kids later, what kind of accounts that exist to be able to pay less taxes and invest more for the future. You can also help women on that aspect if they come to see you.
Right, and that's after the divorce.
Yes.
If I'm working with a couple as a financial neutral during the process, then I don't work with them on their investments.
Yes.
Potentially, if somebody comes to me after they're divorced, and quite often a female investor is looking for a new financial advisor after divorce, because quite often a husband and wife have had a financial advisor, and in this business, about 90-95% of financial advisors are men. And typically, he will concentrate on talking to the husband whenever the husband and wife come in.
Yeah.
And when they get divorced, the husband and wife, there's no real bond or relationship set up in many cases between the financial advisor and the wife. Now, I'm very careful when I have many clients who are husband and wife, and I make sure each dedicate equal attention to each. But I know many financial advisors tend to see it as a guy's thing and leave the woman out of the equation. And in many cases, the woman isn't as interested as she might be as well. So that kind of perpetuates the problem. But once divorced, typically a divorced woman wants a new financial advisor because she doesn't want to work with a guy that her husband's working with. So I used to teach a class at community college on investing. I'm very educational in my approach with regard to investing. So, if somebody's gone through divorce already and they're looking to learn about the options that they have, I'm more than happy to help.
Because what I also see in the women who they're starting to date again and it becomes serious, they have such trouble approaching the subject of money. Let's say people want to live together and they are totally paralyzed. So a lot of my clients, they don't talk about it and then they're frustrated because they live together and they didn't discuss that aspect, and it leads to frustration. And I believe probably on both sides, but my clientele is mostly women, so I hear about it from women. Is there a way to help with that? Can you help with that, or is it more like a mindset?
I think it very much is a mindset. There's the old expression, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yes.
And in many cases, I've been frustrated because I've tried to educate people on what they should be doing and what their options are, but there is a mindset problem. And there's an emotional relationship with money that some people have, men and women.
Yes.
There's an emotional relationship that's a bad relationship, and they need to break through that. And there are people, whether it be therapists, life coaches, who can help with that mindset issue. I try as best as I can but sometimes it's difficult.
Because based on what I see, people would rather talk about sex than money. It's a big taboo out there. And whether it is in France it's even worse than here.
Oh yeah.
You don't talk about money at all. Nobody needs to know how much you're earning. That's the big secret. You don't talk about money. And to me, that's really, first of all, it's dangerous because it can really destroy a relationship. And second of all, like I was saying earlier, money is energy. If this is something you're trying to avoid, it's going to avoid you also. So you need to really build a healthy relationship with money, not falling in love with money, but appreciate it. It's
Right.
a vehicle for freedom.
Exactly. And to me, it means financial security, independence, and freedom. You know, if you have, it cures a lot of problems. It doesn't make you happy. It's not the source of all happiness. But if you're in a bad job and your boss is mistreating you,
Yes.
it's nice to have a pile of money in the bank so you can tell that boss, well, you can tell him a lot of things, but let's just say goodbye. And leave. You're not beholden to a bad situation because you don't have savings put away.
And is there, because for people that, for example, usually get to a point in their life where something happens that is really big, and they decide that now they want to follow their purpose, they want to change, do something else. What would you recommend is the right amount of money to have aside in order to make the jump? Some people say you need to have 6 months of living expenses covered. Is it enough? Do you advise more or less? Where do you stand on that?
You know, I think what you're talking about is an emergency fund, and I was going to say 6 months just because it's a rule of thumb. But really, you should have more than that in your retirement accounts. It should be 6 months liquid money, you know, ready in a 6 months living expense in a bank account. Although some might argue that's a little high, as long as you've got the money liquid, and liquid means easily available, that it's not in equity in a house, it's not in a retirement plan, it's available to cover emergency expenses. And I've always thought, you know, there's no hard and fast rule because some people's expenses are much less. Some people live very high on the hog and eat at the fanciest restaurants and buy the fanciest clothing and what have you. So with them, it's more of a challenge.
As far as investments, I always tell people that the Starbucks that they buy every day, they could put it in a saving account or something where it accrues interest. Would it even be useful if it's only, let's say they cannot put more than that? Is there a point to do that? I personally believe that there is, because that's why I apply. But from your point of view, where you're the expert, is it really something that is even worth?
Yeah, a $5 Starbucks every day is quickly do the math. That's over $1,000. It's over $1,000 a year, quite a bit over $1,000 a year. So that's, yes, that money would be very well spent or invested, put into an IRA. If it was a traditional IRA, you might even get a tax deduction. Roth IRA, you have tax-free income in the future. Obviously, if it's the more than $5 is great, but even $5 is terrific. And I find that personally, I treat myself to Starbucks once a week, maybe twice a week. I find that my Keurig makes a perfectly good coffee for 50 cents. But, you know, once or twice a week, I'll treat myself to Starbucks. Same with the restaurants. You know, I think I've learned to make, as part of my personal growth, I've learned to cook better. And you know, even my girlfriend will tell me we don't need to go for a steak because your steaks are better than the restaurant steaks.
Well, that's a great compliment. But also when you're sorry, if we think about health, it's also very important to know where you eat, what kind of meat. So it also makes sense to eat more at home, maybe sometimes. And but as far as investment, I know that I had to change my mindset on, because I couldn't invest a lot, I was like, oh, it's not even worth it. But that's in fact A mistake?
No, it's a big mistake, because once again, the power of compound interest, and I don't have it. I would suggest that that any of the listeners today look up a table of compound interest.
Yes.
See what $1 or $1,000 compounded over many years can grow to be. It's really astounding. And the sooner you start, you know, if everybody started putting aside $1,000 when they're 20 years old or when they get their first job, most people would be retired by the time they're 50. But that doesn't happen. You know, it's part of life. But you know, as you get older, you have to put aside a little bit more because you're playing catch up. You are playing catch up.
Maybe you should do something to educate young kids, because that would change their life. They don't speak about that.
Do you have any children, Murielle?
Three. I have a 20, a 16, and a 13. And I know that my 20-year-old is very, because I do accounting too, and I speak about that. And I tell her that she doesn't have to start big, because now she's still a student and I'm still helping her. But just starting now, it's peace of mind too.
Well, telling a young person is can be a difficult thing. You know, you'll become a very wise mother by the time they're 30. You know, by the time they're 30, all of a sudden, you know, we have some experience and knowledge. But when they're teenagers or even in their 20s, sometimes they don't want to listen.
Yeah, that's true. But I presented it to in the way of freedom. What you want to feel free to do when you're later in life, and not have to work when you don't want to work anymore, or even to have the security of knowing. Now, something that I'm sure a lot of people are not educated about is the IRAs and the tax benefits of having those accounts, because it makes sense. If you can save money and have tax benefits, why not? That's almost a no-brainer. So they come and have a consultation with you, a consultation to know exactly what's out there and how it could help them.
Yes, especially, this is something that I've been speaking to a lot of clients and prospective clients about recently, is that when you ask somebody about income tax, so what do you think about current income taxes? Typically the response is, oh, income taxes are terrible, they're so high. Well, the fact of the matter is that the highest marginal income tax rate is pretty darn low now compared to where it's been in the last 70 or 80 years. At the time of the Kennedy administration, the highest marginal tax rate was 91%. It was even 70% as recently as the beginning of the Reagan administration. So if you look at a chart of the highest marginal tax rate, it's gone way, way up, and it's actually pretty low right now. And what that tells me is that it's very likely, also when you consider the fiscal problems that the country's going through, how are we going to pay for Social Security, Medicare, the whole healthcare debate, military spending, all the other programs, how are we going to pay for these? It's very, very likely, I would say inevitable, that the tax rate in the future is going to be higher. The highest marginal tax rate is going to be higher now, quite a bit higher than it is right now. And so I think with regards to the type of IRA you choose, if you qualify for a Roth IRA, you don't get a tax deduction right now. But in 20 or 30 or 40 years, when you take the money out of the Roth IRA, it's tax-free. You don't have to worry about paying Uncle Sam anymore. He's been paid already. Now, the traditional IRA, which I think you referred to, yes, you get a tax deduction right now. But remember, when you take money out of that IRA in the future, that money's taxed at your ordinary income tax rate.
Okay.
So, which may or may not be higher than what it is right now. There's a good chance it might be higher though. So if you can, sacrifice the tax deduction now for the tax-free income stream down the road. I can't tell you how many clients of mine grumble to me about taking, because they're over 70 years of age, and they have to, because at 70 and a half years of age, you have to start taking money out of your IRA. It's It's called a required minimum distribution, and you have to pay taxes on that. A lot of my clients are grumbling about having to pay taxes, and I gently remind them, well, you did get a tax deduction when you made the contribution. Yeah, we don't want to hear about that.
So if somebody is already divorced for years, but she just wants information on how to handle her financials and do something better, does it serve her to attend your workshop even if the divorce is like 10 years ago?
You know, I would suggest in that case, it never hurts to get more education. I don't know how, if it's 4, 5, 6, 7 years later, it might benefit her because she might have friends or children or sisters, whatever, who are going through the process. So I always think education is a good thing. But if the person is strictly interested in investments, I'd be happy to speak with them either on the phone or in a meeting in my office.
That would be great. So how can they contact you if they want to schedule an appointment?
Well, my office telephone number is 702-835-6960 for consultations, whether it be on the divorce side or the investment side. And the second Saturday divorce workshop, the website, which has a wealth of information, and the registration tab, is secondsaturdaylasvegas.com.
And I'll put all this information in the description of the podcast for our listeners to contact you and come and educate yourself, girls, ladies.
Thank you.
Very important. So I think if there was one piece of advice, the main piece of advice that you would like to give women today, what would you tell them?
I have to give two pieces of advice.
Okay.
I think the first thing is that there is life after divorce, because the process, I felt when I was going through it, I felt like I was aging in animal years. You know, a lot more gray hair, and there's a lot of stress. But the years after the divorce have been among the best years of my life, and
Yes.
I've pushed outside my comfort zone in many ways, and I see a lot of women doing this as well. For people who are in the process now and getting educated, just educate yourself. Educate yourself about the different ways of divorce. Of course, with the attorneys in the court system, there's mediation, there's collaborative divorce. We discuss all these various methods of divorce at the workshop, so that's important. And read as much as you can, and don't be pushed, don't be rushed, because in many cases, you know, a husband may have already been thinking about this for years. In some cases, the wife's been thinking about it for years. One spouse springs it upon the other spouse. So don't let the other spouse push you and rush you. Take the time to get yourself educated.
And sometimes it's the opposite, because I know that in my case, I'm the one who wanted to divorce. But because my ex-husband was so resistant to it, I was rushed into it because I wanted out, and any kind of conditions that he wanted, I felt guilty about wanting out because my marriage wasn't working. I signed stuff that I regret now, but it was too late.
Yeah.
So in any situation, whether you want to divorce or you are the one who receives the information that he or she wants to divorce, do not rush into it and put your emotions aside. Come to see somebody either like me or like the family therapist.
Yes.
Where you can stay more neutral.
Yes, the emotions are key, and guilt and anger.
Yes.
Guilt can often turn into anger. It's not a good idea to make the most important financial decision of your life when you're feeling these high-strung emotions. And so I'd say someone such as yourself or a divorce family therapist, marital family therapist, speak to somebody, because get support from somebody like that.
That brings me to my my favorite subject, self-love, because it is self-love to be there for yourself and not sign just anything because you are pushed to it. Self-love is very mysterious to certain people. They don't even know how to define it. They don't know where to start. What is your own definition of self-love?
I I think there's probably a couple of components to that. The number one thing, and I think that's the core of my being, is integrity. It's being able to look at yourself in the mirror in the morning and know that you're trying to do the right thing. You're trying to bring more pleasure rather than pain into people's lives. And essentially trying to be a good person. And when you're there, when you can act out with integrity, that just fuels personal growth and pushing outside your comfort zone. Whether it be learning a musical instrument or taking a public speaking class. I think that desire to improve yourself comes from a basic integrity that you're worth improving. Because if you don't like yourself, you're not going to see yourself as worthy of improvement. I think I'm not a psychologist, but to me, it's that sense of doing the right thing and being essentially a good person, a person that treats people well, particularly people who can't be of benefit to you. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
like
yes.
Some people are only nice to people who are their superiors, who think they can get something from.
Yes, to be genuinely a nice person.
To be nice to all different types of people. Now, some people are not nice, and it's difficult to be nice to somebody who's not nice, but just get away from them. Just don't.
Yeah. Yes, and at least you know in your own self that you're clean. You're doing your job on your side of the fence, because the other side is never our responsibility anyway.
None of us are perfect, and we all make mistakes. But if we put our time on earth is limited, and I think it doesn't make sense to be so greedy that you become obsessed with money or obsessed with any number of things that can take over your life.
Yeah, it doesn't make you happy anyway to be extreme. And so I suspect that this kind of definition helps you in your business, even because you are approaching your business with that integrity with your clients.
Right. In my financial advisory practice, I work through the Registered Investment Advisory channel. So we have a fiduciary obligation to act in the best interests of our clients, which fits my definition of integrity very well. There's a lot of financial advisors who may work with other firms, like the big firms like Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley. They don't necessarily have that obligation, although there have been recent regulatory changes in that regard. So in my business, it's finance. The salaries tend to be good. Good money can be earned in the financial services industry. So why be greedy? Why try and make every dime if it's not doing the right thing for your clients? Ultimately, that has to be the question. And I try to behave as if there was a camera in the corner of my office watching me at all time, and I wouldn't be embarrassed if that was put on television the next day, essentially.
Yes.
That's my operating principle.
That's huge, because as clients, we need to be able to trust you. And like the same way we need to be able to trust our doctor and know that he's doing stuff in our own interest. That's a huge piece. Now, in your life, do you have practices to take care of yourself, love yourself? What are your, let's say, one or two practices that you are incorporating on a regular basis?
I'm smiling because about 2 hours ago, I just came from the gym, and it was quite a workout this morning. But I recently joined the True Fusion gym in Summerlin, and I quite enjoy it. And I've only recently started to take some yoga classes.
Oh,
and there's a meditation class coming up that I'm really looking forward to. I think it's important, especially when work can be very stressful, to open your mind to ways of contemplation and relaxation. Certainly that's physically, that's important to me.
Oh, yes.
I would say in the last year, I was always very afraid of public speaking, and I wish that I had taken Toastmasters a long time ago. I started Toastmasters about 6 months ago.
Oh.
And it's just helped me so much, and I recommend it heartily. And if anybody wants to know about Toastmasters or the Toastmasters group that I'm a part of, it's a great group. We meet here in Summerlin on Wednesdays, and it helps not only with your public speaking, but with your confidence. And I'd advise, to a young person in their 20s and 30s, not only to start putting a little bit of money away, enjoy the tremendous benefits of compound interest, but join a Toastmasters organization, because it really helps you with your communication skills and your leadership skills.
Absolutely. I am actually the VP of public relations for my club, and I love it. I just love it. I started about a year and a half ago too, and it has, because English being my second language, I was very self-conscious. I've always loved, I used to do theater when I was younger, so I've always loved being on stage and speaking, but now I had to do it in English. It was an all other story. I remember the first time when I stood up to go answer a question in my first appearance as a guest in a Toastmaster club. My legs were shaking, my heart was racing, and
that's right.
Amazing the progress that we can achieve with regular practice and being amongst people who are here to support you and help you. Right. So I would recommend Toastmasters to anyone. My son is 13 and he was thinking about doing a public speaking class. I said, you go. That will serve you in any aspects, any aspect of your life.
No, very, very much so. I used to be afraid to give a 30-second introduction. And here I am today doing an interview with you, and I do this every month on the second Saturday. I do a 45-minute presentation. I'm looking for speaking opportunities across the city to talk about, the second Saturday approach. I recently, I'm a writer as well, and I recently read one of my short stories to the Toastmaster group, which was the first time in my life I've ever done that. So, and I'm in my 50s now. So, there's life after 40, there's life after 50.
Well, definitely there is life after 50. I declared the day that I turned 50 that the second half would be better than the first half. So, no doubt.
I'm inspired by artists who did achieve some of their masterpieces and their major works in the latter part of life.
Yes, you become wiser, I think, if you want to. Not everyone, but if you really are looking into growing, and you become wiser, no doubt.
Yeah, and I think ultimately it makes you healthier in your older years if you have a purpose. I think happiness isn't so much about acquisition of things; it's having a reason, something to do that fulfills you.
It's about the experience that you're going through, like experiencing life.
That's right, and life is not a dress rehearsal. You only have one.
True, but we have several chances. Chances come around several times.
Yes.
So don't be afraid if you missed one, another one will come up if you're ready for it.
I just wanted to say something. One of my clients, he's in his late 60s, I think. And he said something to me. I told him that, that I was starting the second Saturday and that I was writing a novel and focusing on the divorce niche in financial services as well. And he said, Andrew, your 50s can be the best time of your life because no one will see you coming. Right?
Yeah.
Everybody thinks in your 50s, everybody just, gets fat and sits back and doesn't just rests on everything else. But no, it shouldn't be like that.
Although in the entrepreneurs world, I meet a lot of people who are 50 and above because they don't want to settle for less anymore. They want to go for their dream.
Right.
And because that makes you feel alive.
That's right. And in some ways, my life is kind of like that term paper that I have 3 weeks to write. and it's in the last 4 or 5 days you start working on it.
Yes.
I feel life is a little bit like that sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I want to thank you for being here today in the interview. It was fun and it was very educational because we need to know about our finances. I know it's something that we're trying to avoid, but it's really a piece that everyone has to work on and have a healthy relationship with. Life is about our relationships with ourselves, with things, with people, events. It's always about the relationship. So start building a healthy relationship with your money and you'll be amazed with the results. I want to thank you, Andrew, and I wish you luck with your novel. We're going to have to interview you once it will be written because it's an amazing adventure.
Oh, no, the novel's written, Murielle. The novel's written.
So when are you publishing?
Well, I'm wallpapering my den on the rejection notices right now.
And have you, because I know several authors and listening to, because I also have a book that I'm working on, but it's a very slow process. A lot of writers got tired of being rejected and they decided to self-publish. Is it something you're considering or you're not there?
Well, I prefer to have it published the traditional way. The type of novel. Now, I co-wrote this novel with a friend of mine who's a writing teacher and an Emmy award-winning writer. He worked on L.A. Law and
oh wow,
what's that other? I can't remember the name of his other Quantum Leap. He worked on those TV shows, and I took a course from him at the university, and he liked my work, and he invited me because I used to live in Mexico. In Mexico. A good part of the novel is set in Mexico, so we collaborated on it. And it's a very, it's a political thriller, and it's very much a kind of big concept story. And so we're still going to try and get it to New York and Los Angeles. Who knows? Maybe we'll self-publish down the road, but neither one of us want to go that route right now.
I would tell you to visualize the result that you want and feel it in your body. That's how
I see it as a huge movie. I see it as it's a fast read. It's a page turner, and people who've read it liked it. It probably still needs some improvement, but it's my first novel.
Yeah, well, it's a creation. I mean, and you were talking about meditation. I meditate to stay sane in my mind because I have so many balls in the air, and meditation will also give you guidance on what next step to take in the form of urges. I was just giving a speech last Friday and I was telling people to stay with their eyes open because guidance and intuition can sometimes come in the way of, I want to have a Starbucks there because that's how I met one of my clients. I said, oh, I want a Starbucks now. I went there and he heard me speaking French and we connected and he's now one of my Reiki clients. So you never know. And when you're silent, listen to the urges that you have. You never know.
Well, I haven't. I'm looking forward to my first meditation class in a couple of weeks. So I'm open to the possibilities.
Yes. Thank you, Andrew. I hope, I wish you huge success with your book. I send you good vibes.
Take all the good vibrations.
And thank you for the work that you're doing too.
Thank you very much, Murielle. Thank you. Thank you very much.
The ladies, if you haven't done so already, go educate yourself about your finances and your financial life and take action. And if you just had a divorce and you're still in the midst of turmoil, like you're still in turmoil and confusion, go, if you're in Las Vegas, go attend Andrew's workshop or find a way to educate yourself. It is absolutely a must if you want to attract more money in your life. I'll see you in the next episode in 2 weeks. No, sorry. We have this episode every month. So I'll see you next month with Feel and Look Your Best to Go Dating. Have a good month.
If you like this video, please subscribe to our channel. And for questions, information, or to book a free 30-minute introductory coaching session, please visit datelikeafrenchwoman.com.